My name is Lindy, and today I'm going to be doing a review on Barbara Ehrenreich's book, Nickled and Dimed on Not Getting By in America. This is Ehrenreich's journalistic and anthropological approach to figuring out what life is like and how life fares for those of minimum wage or entry-level job holders. In 1998, Barbara left her comfortable life as a journalist and published author in order to go take on minimum wage level jobs and to see what life was really like. This book was published in 2001, but Barbara was actually doing the research from 1998 to 2000. Before she began her journey, she had a few ground rules. Number one, she would always take the highest paid job that she was offered. Two, she would always take the cheapest housing offered, so long as it still afforded her the safety that she felt she required. And then three, she would start out with $1,200, and this would help her start with her first month's rent and deposit, and also just be a saving grace that she could dip into when necessary. And then four, she would finish this project when she would no longer afford it. So in this book, we follow Barbara serving in Key West, Florida, close to where she grew up and was raised. And then we follow her to Maine, where she does housekeeping. And then finally, we end in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where she does retail work. In this book, Barbara spoke of her day-to-day hassles with finding and searching for housing, and if not housing, for different jobs. Barbara often worked doubles, and then had a couple of jobs to top. And if she wasn't doing that, then she was working every single day to make ends meet. It's important to know that in 1998 through 2000, when Barbara was doing this, the federal minimum wage was $5.15 an hour. And if Barbara wasn't serving, she was actually making $7 an hour or just below at 6-something on her different jobs. By all accounts, she should have been doing more than just scraping by the bottom of the barrel. But surprise, surprise, she wasn't, and she was struggling quite a bit and using every penny that she earned, she needed. Barbara watched her spending, and if she needed any new clothes for interviews or any other odds and ends, she tried to thrift them as best she could. And then she also ate a lot of rice, beans, cheese, and canned chicken. So she wasn't eating extravagantly, she was eating as bare bones as she could, just to fill her stomach, but also do it cheaply. So it's important to note that Barbara's hardest hurdle was definitely the housing. With the rich buying and bulldozing and then building new condos, it made it nearly impossible for the lower level entry workers to be able to afford to live in or nearby the cities that they actually worked. But because of the law of supply and demand, these jobs were still needed. These services were still wanted by the wealthier for their convenience, but without compensating for a higher pay so that they could actually live in the area that they worked. Even though this book is about the misery of economics, it was actually an extremely easy read. Ehrenreich didn't drag on with statistic after statistic, but she did offer them to validate her claims. Ehrenreich gave life to her first-hand accounts of what was going on, and then the first-hand accounts of others that were nearby her that she worked with. And we got to know a little bit about people, and we got to know more about the inside lives and different aspects of what it's like to be a entry-level job holder. So if you're like me and you've already supported yourself fully on a minimum wage job, then you already know what life is like day to day. You already know the things that you go without. You already know about not going to the doctor when you severely need it. You already know about all those things. So the first 2/3 of this book would actually be repetition for you, although I still think that you should read them. I think they're important. But they are going to be repetition for you. The evaluation part, the last third of this book, would be the most beneficial part for you to read. It will validate you and it will make you angry. So there are a few quotes that I found in this book that I really, really liked and that I highlighted. And the first thing that I discovered is that no job, no matter how lowly, is truly unskilled. And I really loved this quote because I hate when people say that things like waitress jobs are unskilled labor, because that means you've never been a waitress or a server of any sort. Because every single job requires a huge amount of skill. You have to be a people person, you have to understand the psychology of people, you have to be able to carry loads of plates and heavy things, you have to be a fantastic multitasker, and you have to be cleaning and feeding people and all these things all at once. And so that's just one job as an example of truly, you do have to have skill for every single job, and I thought that was really important that she included for people who might not understand this concept. The second one was that much of what we find in our strength is knowing what to do with our weaknesses, and I just thought that was beautiful, and it really hit home with me. And then the last one was a portion of a paragraph near the end. The real question is not how well I did at work, but how I did at life in general, which includes eating and having a place to stay. The fact that these are two separate questions needs to be underscored right away. In the rhetorical build-up to welfare reform, it is uniformly assumed that a job is the ticket out of poverty, and that the only thing holding back welfare recipients was the reluctance to actually go out and get one. But I got one, and sometimes more than one. But my track record in the survival department was far less admirable than my track record as a job holder, which I think is extremely important because I hear this time and time again, and I just think it's ridiculous, because I don't think that anybody working 40 hours should be on the poverty level, and with rent so outrageous, it eats up, some people, it eats up like 2/3 of their income, more than that, honestly, and that's happened to me most of my working life, but I managed and I dealt with it. But then you have people telling you that you're not doing something right, when really it's the system that's not doing something right. So ultimately, I gave this book a 4 to 5 stars because I thought it was an extremely easy read, and I thought Barbara gave great life to her accounts, and she also was able to notice privilege where, even if it was her own, where privilege may lie in every situation. It was really interesting, and this book is now more relevant 2 decades after it was written than it ever was before. So I think everybody should read this, and everybody has a little bit to take from it, learn from it. Thank you guys. Bye.